Today, we're going to get into something that I think hits home for a lot of us. We're talking about failure, about that nagging self-doubt, and we're going to do it by looking at the story of Moses. Because believe it or not, his story holds this incredible, hidden truth about what we see as our biggest weaknesses. So let's just start right there with that feeling. You know the one I'm talking about. I mean, have you ever felt that, where it seems like no matter how hard you try, you just fail? It's so frustrating, right? You give it your all, you have the best intentions, and somehow you end up right back where you started. And you tell yourself, okay, this time, it's going to be different. But it isn't. It's this soul-crushing cycle. You get all motivated, you make the promise, and then, snap. You're right back in that same old habit. And you just disappoint yourself all over again. And after a while, those feelings, they start to get, kind of sticky. They start to feel less like something that happened to you and more like who you are. I'm just stuck. Nobody even notices me. I'm just not qualified for this. You look around and you see everyone else succeeding, looking so confident. And then there's you. And all of that can lead to this really deep, kind of terrifying question, right? Especially if you're a person of faith. Can God really still use someone like me? Have I messed up one too many times? Well, to get at that, we're going to look at one of the greatest leaders in all of history, who, it turns out, started out feeling exactly the same way we do.
Yeah, we think of Moses and we picture this giant of faith, parting the Red Sea, the 10 Commandments. But before any of that, before he was a hero, he was, for all intents and purposes, a massive failure.
I mean, think about the fall. This guy had everything. He grew up a prince in Pharaoh's palace, the best education, power, influence, the whole shebang. And then, in one single impulsive moment of rage, it all goes up in smoke. He kills a guy and poof, it's gone. He's a wanted man, a fugitive on the run. And that brings it right back home, doesn't it? Have you ever had a moment like that? One mistake that felt so big, it felt like it just canceled your whole future? That's exactly where Moses was. Totally alone in the desert with his entire life just in ashes. So, what happens to this fugitive prince? Well, it's not some quick comeback story. There's no immediate second chance. No, what came next was just a long, and deafening silence. Yeah, 40 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. We're not talking about a bad week or a tough month. We're talking about 4 decades of being a nobody in the middle of nowhere. No purpose, no signs from God, nothing. Just silence. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The failure itself is one thing. That's bad enough. But the silence that comes after, that feeling that you've just been forgotten, that God has totally moved on and left you behind, man, that can be the most painful part of the whole experience. But then, after 40 years, right when you think, okay, this story's definitely over, the silence breaks and something totally, completely unexpected happens. And here's the crazy part. God didn't come to him back in the palace when Moses was powerful and successful. Nope, he showed up in the wilderness. He showed up right in the middle of Moses' failure, his obscurity. The call came when he was at his absolute lowest. So what does Moses do? You'd think he'd be thrilled, right? Relieved. But that's not what happens. His very first response is just pure self-doubt. Who am I? He's basically saying, God, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm a nobody now. Then he goes from feeling unworthy himself to being afraid of what other people will think. What if they don't believe me? What if I go and they just laugh me out of the room? It's that classic fear of rejection, right? And it can totally paralyze you. And then, for his final excuse, he pulls out what he thinks is the ultimate deal breaker, his most basic flaw. I can't even talk right. I'm slow of speech. He is 100% convinced that he is the last person on earth who is qualified to do this. But it's right here, in this moment, in this whole pile of excuses and insecurities, this is where we find the hidden truth of the whole story.
See, God didn't call Moses because he was the perfect candidate, not because he was flawless or super confident. He was chosen simply because he was available. He was willing. It wasn't about being qualified, it was about being willing. Not the hero, just the guy who, after all that, finally said yes.
And once you see that, it just reframes everything, doesn't it? Those 40 years, the time Moses probably thought was a punishment, a total dead end, that wasn't the end. That was the training ground. That was his preparation. So, what does all this old story about some guy in the desert, have to do with you, right here, right now? Well, everything. Because here's the question I want you to really think about. What if your failures aren't actually disqualifying you? What if they're preparing you? What if that thing you're most ashamed of is actually getting you ready for what's next? What if your wilderness is your training ground?
You've probably heard this saying before, and it is so true. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. It's not about being perfect from the get-go. It's just about showing up, saying yes, and letting the journey itself be what qualifies you.
So if you're sitting there right now feeling stuck, feeling so tired of starting over, feeling like you've just messed up too much, just remember Moses. Remember the 40 years in the desert. God is not done with you, not even close. Your story is not over. In fact, it might just be beginning. Because here's the most amazing part of it all. Sometimes, the people who feel the most unqualified, the most broken, they're the ones God uses to do the impossible. The thing you think is your biggest weakness, that might just turn out to be your greatest strength.